What's up, Dan? Welcome to the SABM podcast.
Hey Scott, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, man. I'm excited. We connected a while ago, and you were telling me about this new business you were starting up. We both live in South Carolina, and I play tennis. So this is a racket sport here that that you're involved with. And is it paddle or padel? Because I initially
I'm a,
like called it paddle, and then all of a sudden I would say paddle to people, and they're like, "Oh no, it's padel." So
so we're gonna start right with that. I love it.
we're just gonna start
So
right with that, and then we'll go from there.
the correct pronunciation is paddle.
Paddle.
Now, if I
Okay.
made you a pie and you called it pecan rather than pecan, the most important thing you enjoy the pie. But in paddle, the world calls it paddle.
Okay.
And when the sport was first emerging in the United States, especially in areas like Chicago and New York, where platform tennis is big, people were calling platform tennis paddle. And so there was a desire to differentiate with this new sport. And so people started calling it padel. In fact, a buddy of mine, Marcos Del Pilar, who is like the godfather, he was the one that first started using the pronunciation padel. And last year he said, hey, paddle has gained such traction in the United States. It's time that we just start pronouncing it the same as the rest of the world, because it's funny, like the Europeans are like, why are the Americans saying it weird? It's just paddle. And so if we look at the its premier paddle is the international circuit. A great brand is Bull Paddle, and so we want to be uniform with the rest of the world, and so paddle is the correct pronunciation.
All right, man. Well, I'm so glad you said that today because that's what sounds most natural to me, like paddle.
Yes, yeah,
And then
yeah. It's not
I
like
hear
Target if you're going to Target.
Jose. Yeah. I'm so glad you cleared that up. So the name of your company, so 4040 Paddle Club,
Yes,
and
yes.
yeah, tell us all about it. What kind of got like what led you down this path? And also, you're a Citadel grad, so we have to also start with that.
We
So
have
you
we have to hit on
infiltrated
that.
your way onto the podcast, into the investor group, presenting last week. But it's such a cool business, man, and I'm so glad that we connected, and really excited to hear how you even like ended up down this path.
So what's funny is we'll start with the Citadel thing, because in the Citadel we always say, oh, we're the harder school and all that. There was a nice, especially when I went through infantry school, because after the Citadel I was an infantry officer. But I went through Ranger school with like the company E4, and so after Ranger school they just kind of adopted me. So I then started seeing, oh, these West Point guys are pretty good. And then after my company command time, I ended up getting a job as the B1 TAC officer. And so what's funny, when I was at the Citadel, I marched my fair share of tours. So I showed up and was there for the West Point tour walkers, walking accelerated hours to graduate. And then I really loved my time there. I was the B1 TAC officer, and then I taught the capstone course on leadership, and just such a fulfilling job. I still talk with many of my cadets who are now captains, and so that's been a beautiful gift. But with paddle, it's interesting. When I got out of the Army, so the Army sent me to get a master's degree in organizational psychology before going to West Point. And then I got a job as an executive recruiter with a boutique executive search firm called Parker Remick. And we focused on building C-level teams for tech companies. And that's when I first heard about paddle from some of my European clients. And then happenstantially, one of my best friends from the Army was motorcycling across South America, invited me to visit him down in Ecuador. And then I end up meeting my now fiance. And that's when I first started playing paddle. And I think the
Hmm.
first time she and I played together, we played for 3 hours. I was absolutely hooked. And a little bit about similarly, I had a tennis background. I played racquetball in the Army. I played pickleball like many Americans, but the first time I played paddle, I said, there's something really different about this. It's so athletic. and it combined a lot of creativity from racquetball. And so I fell in love, and then instantly knew that, hey, I really I want to see where this is going in the United States. And so it was almost love at first sight with my fiance and with paddle. So that's really where I started the journey a little over 2 years ago.
Wow. And just describe for the folks listening what paddle is. Like describe the court for us, like how the game works. My first exposure was at the LTP Daniel Island Club, here like 20 minutes from me. Um, right next to Credit One Stadium. They do a tournament there every year. There's a whole bunch of tennis courts, and then all of a sudden, like they built this paddle court, right? And so I was like, "What is this?" So I mean, I'm familiar with it because I've seen a court. But if you could just describe to us, like,
Sure.
what does the court look like? How do you play this? Like, how does the game work?
So it's a smaller court than a tennis court because it's international. The actual measurements are 20 meters by 10 meters, which for us is 66 feet by 33 feet. And so it's played in doubles, and so it's two against two. And behind you, you have glass, and then off to the sides, you have this sort of fencing material. And so it's played with an underhand serve to get started. And then the difference is you can play off of the back glass and off of the side glass. So the rallies go a whole lot longer, and very similar to like squash or racquetball, using the glass really elevates your game.
Hmm.
And so it's very, people ask, what's the difference between this and pickleball? I say, well, the similarities is anybody can play on day one. But the difference is this has a real high level of athleticism. It is incredibly complex. You can put really nice slice and spin on the ball, and so if you find yourself, people that come from a tennis background, they love this. A lot of net play. People that play pickleball and they say, hey, maybe I want a little bit more athleticism. I want, people that love singles pickleball really love paddle. And then the main thing is paddle is an international sport, over 30 million players worldwide. The recent number that I heard is approaching 50 million, over 130 countries. Olympic, on track to be an Olympic sport by 2032. And so if you were to watch professional paddle next to professional pickleball, it illuminates that there is a lot of really fantastic complexity in paddle, which is a beautiful differentiator.
Yeah, and are most of the courts indoors or outdoors? The one that's here is outdoors, but I'm not sure if that's the norm or what are you seeing?
So paddle can be played indoors or outdoors. You're actually playing on a synthetic turf. And so if it is indoors, the lob shot is the strategic shot in paddle. So if you were to say the dink in pickleball is what the lob shot is in paddle. And so if you're indoors, you need high ceilings. This can be played outdoors. And then what you see in a lot of areas like the UK, where the sport is blowing up, is you see like a hybrid where some of their courts are outdoors, some of their courts are either indoors or have a cover that is at least 30 feet in clear height. So you'll see some differences based on geographies.
Wow. Yeah. So it's pretty interesting. Just like the cross between, pickleball, tennis, and racquetball, like kind of all, all
Yes,
combined.
yes. And
And
and the thing that I
go
just
ahead.
to mention one other thing, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I played racquetball in the Army, and then I played in when I was home at times. And one thing that I found differently, at least from my experience, is I find a ton of female players in paddle.
Hmm.
And I didn't really see that in racquetball. So there is the question of like the staying power of the sport. It's emerging in the United States. It's been around for over 40 years. But what we're seeing here is we're seeing not only a lot of male and female players, you're seeing players that are young and old. And so it really has a very nice multi-generational, and it has a lot of different segments of player populations, which really leads to that Olympic pursuit, that NCAA pursuit. And so I find that to be something really beautiful about the sport as well.
Absolutely, man. Really, really exciting. And I'm really curious, maybe if we could dive in next to, what's the 40/40 paddle club, right? Like
Yes.
what are you building and what's the opportunity that you see here, locally in South Carolina and beyond?
And that goes back into my story a bit in that I once I met my fiance, I was traveling back and forth from the United States to Ecuador a lot. And then it was just as I was learning about paddle, then I start seeing Good Morning America, Forbes, CNN. I'm starting to see paddle being announced all over mainstream media. And I'm seeing things like, it's on the Joe Rogan podcast, it's on Jimmy Fallon late night. So there's people talking about paddle. And I was like, wow. So because I was a recruiter, I was very good at connecting with people, reaching out in inboxes and all that. And my first two conversations, it would be like if you just found out about baseball and then your first two conversations are with, Steinbrenner and Theo Epstein. It's like my first two conversations were with Marcos Del Pilar, who is like the godfather of US paddle, and then Pascal Collard, who is now a board member of mine. He was a member of the US Paddle Association. He was a leader in building courts in the United States. And so I started really touching base with some of the people that were on the lead end of paddle, and they said, you have no idea what you have stumbled upon. Like, this thing is really, it's got enormous potential. And so at the time, I actually owned a camper van, and I packed up my camper van and I drove all throughout Miami, which is kind of like the hub of paddle in the United States, and then up through, South Carolina, North Carolina, Philadelphia, New York, Connecticut. And I was interviewing customers at every paddle club that I could find. And so what I started to see is, as I'm learning, doing market discovery, the sport started to erupt. And so I was finding that areas like Atlanta that didn't have any paddle courts, now were having the first paddle courts and then competition. Same thing with Charlotte. And so as I was learning more about, this sport that's emerging with force in the United States, I then was looking at home, and I live in Greenville, South Carolina, and there's this vibrant athletic community. There are, really great pickleball and paddle communities. And I was like, man, this is a really great market opportunity right here in Greenville and across South Carolina. So there are two courts that are open to the public. You mentioned one at LTP. The other is in Columbia. This group of squash players built one paddle court in Columbia,
Hmm.
and so I would travel there to play. And what I was finding is that people were driving from far distances, but there wasn't really a professional club, and that's really the what I aimed to deliver is a designated paddle club, spread it across South Carolina. And then the other thing too is, as I traveled around, I found very, very expensive paddle.
Hmm.
And so what I aimed to do was build a very lean business model so that there wasn't this large financial barrier to entry for people to come and play. And so ultimately what 4040's mission is to proliferate and spread paddle to as many Americans' hands as possible, focusing on South Carolina. And so as we look at anchoring into South Carolina's universities, anchoring into South Carolina's top population centers, that is really our main objective. And so we're starting here in the upstate, and then using that as the launch platform to then spread far and wide.
Yeah, super exciting. And just I mean, you're in the right area for sure because, I mean, racket sports around here, or at least where I live, it's crazy. Like just how many people play tennis, how many people play pickleball. Um, and, that's just kind of the next thing to play, right? paddle, right?
For
Like
sure,
I'm
for
sure
sure,
everybody would
for
want to
sure.
play. Like if there was a paddle court at our club, the people would play every single day, I bet. So
I have yet to find somebody who hasn't stepped on the court and hasn't left with a giant smile saying they want to do it again. And interestingly, in places like Philadelphia, um, their country clubs is one of the highest asked for amenity on country clubs. We see resorts all over the United States that are building these, um, and then you have clubs as well. And so there certainly is this big demand, and even I'm doing some SEO research, and paddle even in the upstate of South Carolina has had 50% growth year over year since 2023, and we're averaging about 800 searches a month on questions like where can I play paddle, what is paddle in South Carolina. And so we see that there is absolutely a market here, and then there's also the market of people who haven't heard about it yet, and our goal is put a racket in their hand, leave them, smiling, having a great time, and then coming back for more.
all right, so let's talk about kind of where you're at currently. I guess maybe what's standing in between where you're at now and then your first paddle court is open, and what does that look
For
like?
sure.
Is it a club? Is it, I think I mean, I know the answer because, we've talked about it before, but yeah, as I'm going to see my daughter at Clemson, who just started there, Greenville's, that's like the next closest town, worth staying at, right? It's an awesome
For sure.
city. And like, hey, when will I be able to go to visit my daughter at Clemson and then go play paddle in Greenville?
So it's a great question. We are really excited. As I said, I've been working at this for over 2 years now, over a year and a half working at this full time. And so the our first location, it's almost analogous to opening a food truck before you open a restaurant with a new cuisine. And so we're opening two courts in a place called the Pickle Yard, which is actually in Malden, South Carolina. The founder of the Pickle Yard is a friend of mine, Drew Parker. He is a phenomenal tennis player. He actually knows paddle as well, and so he built a great restaurant, bar, pickleball facility that also has golf simulators, has volleyball, and Malden is this very it's on in this area in the upstate. It's an emerging residential area, thousands and thousands of homes being built there, a lot of young people moving there. And so what Drew is really providing is he's providing one of the first, non what would we say? It's not a chain. It's a first amenity that's built for that community for people to stay and play and have a good beer and have a good meal. And so what he offered is, hey, go ahead and put your two courts right in the front of the Pickle Yard. It's a great place that we can introduce paddle to the market, and ultimately that is our goal, to then get to really our main objective is a flagship club up in the upstate, which is about a 6 to 8 court club. And that's where we would either go indoors or we would cover a portion of our courts for all weather play. And our objective is the first two courts will be open this November. We haven't pinned exactly our grand opening date, but we're aiming for mid-November. And then really from there, behind the scenes, we're working on our full club. We've got some early prospects of land, and that's really our objective is to get that up and running uh, within 2026.
Yeah, it'll be really exciting. It sounds like, those two courts are kind of, your minimum viable product, right? Like going to the market, opening up,
That's
seeing
correct.
what happens, right? Because you don't even know what's going to happen. You've got like a feeling like, hey, there is a lot of demand. It seems like, you have no idea what could come from that, right? Like what what opportunities could come from it, what partnerships could come from it, like
For sure.
um
And what I would say is, speaking to, I'm sure we have a large military audience here. We always talk on deployments about your first 100 days, and the things that change with regards to your plan on a deployment in the first 100 days, in that you're going in with a plan, but that plan is going to be modified. And so that's the same thing here. Is we have a plan, we have great examples, but we're a first mover in this area, and we'll be the first designated paddle club in South Carolina. And so we need to learn what the audience or what the customers are really seeking. And so this allows us to get in, to iterate fast, build our team, and then be able to apply those lessons learned at full scale. And so everything that we're doing is with the people and the process in mind. We can only scale as fast as the processes that we build. And so that's really what these first two courts allow us: speed to market, get really good fast, and then scale.
Yeah. Well, I think it'll be the talk of the town, man, especially right there, kind of near the pickle yard. Like those are basically your customers, you know, your ideal
For
customers,
sure.
people that play pickleball or, would very likely also play paddle, right? And then they're going to tell their friends like, oh, these crazy courts, this is just went up. Like, what is that? Is it Padel or, and they're just going to talk about it, right? It'll be the talk of the town. And
I
hopefully
think
drive
I think we have a couple really great. There's a club out in San Francisco named Park Paddle. They started with two pop-up courts. Then they're now on their, that was maybe a year and a half ago. I think they're on their third location now.
Hmm.
Philadelphia, they started with pop-up courts or quick to install courts. Same thing with, there's a club in Bethesda, Maryland. So there's definitely a playbook, and we're following that same playbook of get in light and then scale fast. And then the other side of it as well is, you know, there's a lot of lessons to be learned overseas. So looking at the performance of, let's just call it like tier one, tier two, and tier three cities, you might say, well, why not go into Atlanta first, or Charlotte first, or Austin, Texas? And what we think is that we really will benefit from the word of mouth. In the upstate, it's a growing population center. We really believe that we can get real estate a whole lot less expensive than, let's just call them, NFL size cities. And then, with regards to like marketing, like we have a population, a community of, we know where people hang out, we know what people do socially. So we think that we're actually really going to succeed well here with that tier two size city. And from global statistics, if you were to look at the data, often those tier two, tier three cities are often outperforming clubs in those large, giant metropolitan areas.
Absolutely. Well, that's great, man. Well, I'm really excited for you. So just a couple of months away until the grand opening. I can't wait to get by and check out your courts. Let's zoom out, man, and just maybe look further down the road. Is obviously grand opening and your first 100 days are really important, and opportunities might open up, but just kind of based on the research that you've done, kind of the model that you've created, where would you like to be 3, 4, 5 years down the road? Where do you see this going?
I think there is incredible growth potential here. And if we were to look at, there's a lot of clubs out there that are saying, 10 locations in the next 5 years. I mean, there's huge desire for growth. And what we're seeing early clubs scaling quickly. And the nice thing about paddle as well is we have it's a small, if you look at the people that opened 2 years ago, last year, and this year, we kind of all know each other. And so there's great, sharing of ideas, there's great learning from other clubs. And so, if I were to look at my short-term goals, my short-term goals are, get our first flagship open. But then soon thereafter, I believe that 5 clubs in 5 years is very doable. And so if we were to look at, what are some of the challenges and barriers to entry? Well, you know, not only each geography has to work with their own municipalities to figure out the zoning, the permitting, working with the building officials, understanding how the municipality is going to treat your courts, even things like educating on wind loads and educating on the safety parameters around paddle courts. And these aren't just we're just throwing glass up. These are rated courts that can withstand the wind loads necessary to be safe. All of those things are the challenges that each founder has in his or her own geography. And so now that we have really done that in South Carolina, we have a lot of support from the municipalities. Now it's about finding the land to be able to support our full clubs. And so when we think about what are some of the land requirements on our end for an outdoor flagship club, which is really what we're looking for. About an acre to 2 acres is what we're looking for. And the question there is parking provided? So we would be more than willing to go into a flat piece of undeveloped land. And then I would say about an acre and a half if we have to put in our own parking lot. We also really like mixed use developments. So if there's developers out there who are saying, oh, I've got a brewery right here, I've got multifamily right here, I've got this acre, I don't really know what to do with. We're a lot leaner than a tennis club, and what we offer is, hey, we can bring a lot of foot traffic, we can bring a lot of excitement to an area, and we can afford a substantial lease rate as well. And so we're predominantly looking to lease land. We're looking at lease, in duration of time. We would like around 10 years is really what we would be looking for. And then when we're working with developers, we're not only open to things such as a straight land lease, we would also be open to joint ventures. And so ultimately, we're willing to get creative. What I would describe is there's a land grab happening in the United States right now. We see the first mover advantage, and so we really want to move quickly, find great land, and then also, there's a great example of Paddle X in Miami. If you see the before and after picture, it's this old rundown parking lot that now is a 10-court facility
Oh,
that
wow.
is a vibrant. I mean, it raised the property value of all the properties around it, and they are absolutely packed with many very affluent customers as well. And so we see ourselves as enabling, the different tenants or the different other company owners all around us. Now, if we were to talk about indoors very quickly, indoors we would be looking for approximately 20,000 square feet. 20 to 30,000 would be a great size for us, but we're really looking for that 30-foot clear height so we can offer professional level qualities of play in an indoor facility. And then even in those cases, we see ourselves going great next to physical therapy offices, climbing gyms. So I think there's a lot of synergies that we can do with other types of tenants as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, man, it's just I guess what's also really nice about this is it like it makes people like healthier too, right? I mean, my wife got me into tennis about 4 years ago. I think this is my fourth year. And,
It,
just what it's done just from a health perspective, it's been transformational, right? And so, you mentioned the old parking garage that got turned into a bunch of paddle courts. Like that's just like a huge positive benefit for a community, right? To have a place where they can go to exercise and then socialize, right? Like build new friendships, get that if you're competitive, kind of like get those competitive juices flowing. And um it's just
that's a,
yeah, it's a win-win. I mean,
that's
it's
exactly
not just
right.
about
Right.
like, hey, we're making money and this is cool. And whatever, but like you're adding, it's just such a positive element to a community to bring people together and to compete in a healthy way and become healthier, right? Live longer.
One thing that I noticed, because I was playing pickleball here in Greenville, and there's a couple great parks. Timmins Park has pickleball courts. Gower Park has and so in pickleball, you go and you put your racket on in the line, and then you just kind of cycle in, you play. And what I noticed is nobody ever asked me for my phone number, or nobody, often you might touch racket and say, "Oh, what's your name?" Okay, but you cycle very quickly. As I was traveling the United States, I would play, and people would say, "Hey, can I connect with you because I want to play with you again?" The
Oh,
difference being the difference being that, Scott, if you and I wanted to play paddle, we need to find two other people to play with. And
hmm.
so the clubs that do very well, and what we want to build is we want to build community where you and I, we can find two other players very easily on a group thread that play at our same level. And so if you see, when I was down in Ecuador, my fiance, she was introducing me to all these other, women who are friends with hers. And she said, "Oh, this is my friend from paddle. This is my friend from paddle." And I said, "Wow, like I don't really hear that so much in the pickleball community, and I don't really see that much in the United States." And so one of the, if you were to talk about like the altruistic side of this business, is we want to build a community where people can find not only a healthy activity, burning calories, exercising with a smile on their face, but also connecting with people, making close friendships. And that's really the side of things that, if we look at, there's a lot of disconnected people today. There's a lot of people that, are looking to have meaningful connections. And that's what we want to provide is the venue where meaningful connections and phenomenal experiences happen.
Yep. Well, you're doing it, man. You're doing it. It's about to happen. So what are your challenges? What connections are most valuable for you? So for the listeners here listening today, how can we help? Like, who are you looking to connect with? What intros can we make? And, where are you stuck? Like, what experts are you looking for?
Yeah, it's a great question. What I would say is I've been I'm just really fortunate already that, so I mentioned Pascal Collard. He's on our board. I made a really close connection with a guy named John Malloy, who has 40 years of finance experience, whether that's corporate or startup. He's on our board. And Brad Harvey has a ton of real estate experience in and around the upstate. And so we built this very, very, I mean, like, honored by the capabilities of our team. And then not only that, my web designer Ben Cox, I met him through the Citadel connection, and so it's been really lovely for me to just find these great partners helping out. Playtomic, that I mentioned, is the largest booking platform. We built a great partnership with them. Mindspring is actually a court financing group out of Belgium. They
Hmm.
financed our courts for us. And so what we've just found this overwhelming support and belief, not only in our team, but also in the growth of paddle in the United States. And so what I would say is, like, hey, what areas, even like, Dunlop, gave me, a couple of rackets. Dunlop is here in Greer, and they've got a great racket sport. They sell paddle balls. Another friend, he built Blanca, which these rackets right here are from Blanca. And so the area that I would say that we really would benefit is, for one, we're looking for those land opportunities, and we would love to have those sorts of phone conversations. For two, is we're seeking to build awareness. And so, hopping on 4040, which is FORTY paddle.com, and watching what we're doing, joining our newsletter. And then also, when we think about synergistic businesses, whether those are, if you play maybe 5v5 soccer or climbing gyms, apparel companies, we're looking for a great apparel partner with us. Some other ones that come to mind are digital marketing and PR. So all of these things of evangelizing, building awareness, and then as well, I see this incredible power of not only Scott, what you've built with the Service Academy Business Mastermind Group, the veteran community. We want to prioritize hiring veterans. We also want to seek opportunities to get integrated into the universities. I envision, during Army Navy Week, they do the Patriot games right there. I want to get paddle courts right there and have Army playing Navy in paddle. And if this is going to be an Olympic sport, our allied partners, the Brits, they're putting paddle courts on their bases. So are the Spaniards. I think that there's a great opportunity for us to integrate our armed forces and get our veterans and our soldiers doing this as well. So that's a potpourri answer of if you're involved in sports, if you're involved in veteran hiring, if you're involved in digital marketing, those are all things that we would love. Or land, if you're involved in land development, and that's outside of South Carolina as well. I have some really other areas that are in the Southeast I would love to explore as well.
Yeah, well, hey, maybe there could be the first paddle court at one of the academies here in the next 5 years, 5 to 10 years. I know when I was there recently, I saw the pickleball courts at the Naval Academy. So I'm like, all right, we're moving
Well, I
forward.
mean,
So
West Point had an incredible team handball. I mean, they had a great league there. A lot of my buddies were rugby players, and that was a little bit before rugby really caught wind in the United States. And so I think the academies are a great place to really lead the charge on some emerging sports. And so I think the academies. I mean, obviously my alma mater as well, the Citadel. I intend to reach out to these major universities in South Carolina as well and talk about, hey, how do we? NC State just put courts in, and
oh
so
wow.
yeah, and so University of the Pacific put courts in, and so we're starting to see what I believe is the very early, almost like seeds that will lead to this being an NCAA sport.
Really cool. Well, Dan, hey man, thanks for being on the podcast today. And what's the best way for folks to learn more about 4040, to connect with you and get in touch?
So our website not only has our email. A great place to reach us is info at 4040paddle.com, and we can put that down in the chat down below. It also has our Instagram and our Facebook. And then you could reach me directly at Dan Fitzgerald at 4040paddle.com. And so it's a pleasure. Scott, one thing I realized I didn't answer is the name 4040. The scoring is similar to tennis in that you play 15, 30, 40, but most universally in paddle, you play golden point, which is the next point wins. So at 4040, it's the moment of most excitement. It's like,
Mm.
hey, this is like the moment that you either seize the win. And so that's a little bit of the energy that I wanted to bring is, hey, 4040, this is our moment.
This is it, man. This is crunch time. So there's no deuce, there's no ads. It's next point wins.
That's the most, you'll see different formats in different professional leagues, but in the US Paddle Association, they dictate 4040 golden point.
Golden point. All right.
That's right.
Learning all the lingo
So when
today.
you play, just make sure you don't think you've got that additional ad. We're going right for the next point wins.
Well, it moves a lot quicker that way. So
Yeah, yep, for
well,
sure.
Dan, hey man, great job pitching the investor group last week. Great job on the podcast today. Congrats on all the progress you've made with 4040 over the years. Really excited to see it to come to life here in the next couple of months. So here's to an awesome finish to 2025.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been, I mean, not only has the Service Academy Business Mastermind Group been phenomenal, the veteran community has been phenomenal. We've got a group here called Upstate Warrior Solution that we're actually headquartering our company there. They've been just a phenomenal group. And so It's great to see veterans supporting veterans as well, and that's another side of this business that I absolutely love. And for all the followers out there, if you're passing through Greenville, or even if you live in the upstate, this is please reach out. I'd love to teach you the game, and then we're a pay to play company, so you don't need to be a member. You can just book a time right on Playtomic, and then come down for a game, and you'll probably see me there. So would love to get as many people on the court, and yeah, we'll see you guys out there. That same to you, Scott.